Have you ever met an intersex person? Not sure? Well, have you ever met a person with red hair or green eyes? If so, then statistically, yes, you've met an intersex person. Let me break this down. First of all, I want to say that a lot of people have a false idea of what intersex actually is. I know that we used to say the word hermaphrodite, but we don't say that anymore. It's actually kind of offensive. Basically, what that word is meaning is that people have two different sets of genitalia at the same time, and that's just not true. That does not exist. What intersex actually means is a combination of things. So it could mean that a person has external genitalia that's different than their internal reproductive anatomy. It also pertains to a person's hormones and chromosomes. So normally a male's chromosomes are XY, but someone who might be presenting as a cis woman might actually have XY chromosomes. What this may mean is that their body is producing testosterone instead of estrogen, and they might not be able to have kids, right? So it all depends on the person. The problem is that a lot of times people who are intersex actually don't find out because doctors like to hide this at birth. There are only two places that have intersex as an option at birth, and that is Germany and the state of Colorado. Otherwise, it's just male-female. So what do you think the doctors do? A lot of doctors believe in the false binary of the sexes, male versus female. And I don't know if they don't believe in intersex or what, but they just kind of don't want them to exist. So they have them fall between one of the two. So they'll choose to change someone's anatomy, like give babies, newborn babies or children, like maybe it's a couple years after the birth, they'll go and give them surgery. Do that so that they can fit better into the typical male or female role. The issue is that these kids don't get any consent about what's happening to their body. And a lot of the time, the parents don't know what's going on either. If parents do know, then they might not even tell their kid because they just want them to live like a normal life. But in my opinion, it's pretty messed up. The cool thing about intersex people is that their body sometimes naturally fix itself in regards to hormones. So there's this thing called complete androgen insensitivity, which means for people who are presenting as a woman, their body doesn't respond to the testosterone. So what happens is their body ends up turning the testosterone into estrogen, which is what they need. The problem is that a lot of these doctors are actually sterilizing these kids. So they take out, for example, if it's someone who's presenting as a girl and they might have testes, they take out the kid's testes so their testes can't be producing the hormones that they need. And they're basically, it's the equivalent of a child going through menopause. Like, our bodies need hormones for literally everything, and they're just taking that away from the kids. So imagine growing up and your body just doesn't feel right at all, and you just don't even know what's going on. A person's hormones affect their bone growth, their organs functioning, like it is so major. That's why it's really important to raise awareness of this issue because it's incredibly common and so many people are experiencing this that we don't even know. Tell me what you all think. Have you heard about this before? Have you learned about this in school? Have you met someone maybe who's intersex and talked to you about this? We should definitely keep advocating for them because at the end of the day, intersex people are part of the LGBTQIA community, right? So tell me what you all think. If we raise enough awareness for this, maybe we can get intersex on more birth certificates and just more people can be comfortable talking about it. We'll see. This is really messed up, but what ends up happening with intersex people is that doctors tend to choose them to be women or girls instead of boys and men. They say that it's easier to dig a hole than to build a pole. Like, it's easier to create a vagina than it is to create a penis. This might sound crazy, but maybe we should let the person choose what they want their genitalia to be. I don't know. This person made a really interesting comment about how the same people that might be performing the surgery on intersex people might also be refusing to give trans people the gender-affirming care that they need. I just find it very interesting that 67 to 73% of doctors are cis white men. I just feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to the medical field. At this point, we really need more queer people to be in the medical field so that they can give these queer kids and queer people the care that they deserve. And that's not to say that cis people and straight people can't provide great quality care, because they can. But the education in the medical field, I think, is lacking, specifically with queer issues. And the fact that a lot of these queer people cannot advocate for themselves in these situations, it's really messed up. We have enough people with mental health issues in this country, and we should not be making it worse. Are there any people in the medical field that have thoughts? Let me know. Hey friends, thank you so much for all the support on the Intersex series that I've been doing. I know it was confusing when I was talking about how if you met a person with green eyes or red hair, then you've probably met someone who's intersex. This person was saying that they had a hard time understanding it until they realized that it's just about probability. Yes. Basically, 2% of the population has green eyes, 2% of the population has red hair, and 2% of the population is intersex. What I was saying is that it's extremely common to meet someone who's intersex, but you might not know it because it's an invisible trait. And again, a lot of times it's hidden from the individual themselves. It might not seem like that's a lot of people, 2%, but with the population of the world being 7.9 billion people times 2%, that's 158 million people who are born intersex. So having green eyes or red hair is not related to being intersex, but those three things are extremely common. Shout out to Germany and the state of Colorado for being the only two places where you can get intersex on your birth certificate when you get born. I'm genuinely hoping that as we discuss this, we can get more states and more countries to recognize intersex as a legitimate sex at birth. Being intersex is completely valid, and they shouldn't have to change themselves in order to fit into the male-female category. Are there any law people who know, how do we change birth certificates? How do we get that to change for states or for countries? Can we create a petition or something? Let me know. So I do stand corrected. This person explained that there are people who have two sets of genitalia who are intersex. It's just extremely rare. And I think the problem was that people thought that intersex was that entirely, having two sets of genitalia. And since it's so rare, we don't want to define intersex that way because it can be a variety of sex characteristics. But yeah, thank you for this comment. Some people were asking, why can't we use the word hermaphrodite? It has this cool Greek mythology origin. The issue is not necessarily with the word itself, but with how the word has been used, specifically to discriminate against intersex people. Similar to trans people, intersex people have been victims to violence. And part of that is with language, people using hermaphrodite in the derogatory way and using it as an excuse to hurt them. Maybe one day intersex people can reclaim this word, but that's why it's not really the best thing to call people. A lot of you are wondering if you have PCOS or polycystic ovary syndrome, does that make you intersex? And this person had a great reply. They said from their understanding, intersex people can have PCOS, but having PCOS does not necessarily mean you're intersex. From my understanding, some intersex people have ovaries, but others don't. So do intersex people have PCOS? Yes. But having polycystic ovary syndrome does not necessarily mean that you're intersex. Why do doctors rush to perform surgery on intersex babies? That's a great question. Sometimes these doctors will rationalize it by saying that a newborn has a risk of cancer. For example, if there's a baby who they want to be a girl who has internal testes, they'll say, oh, she has a risk of testicular cancer. But the thing is, there's only a 1 to 5% chance of someone getting testicular cancer if they have testes. If someone has breast cancer in the family, do you chop off their breasts as a kid? If someone has a risk for lung cancer, do you take out their lungs? No, because we need these body parts. Same with testes, they produce hormones which we need for our bodies. Kids need these hormone-producing body parts because they help their organs develop, they help their bone growth. The real answer is that doctors don't want intersex people to exist. They want them to fall into that binary of male-female, and so they'll perform surgery without the kid's consent. I would say that this is the last thing I'm going to say about intersex people, but that's probably a lie. So, we talked about how 2% of the population is intersex, right? And that's millions of people. That's so many people. But also, those are only the people who've reported being intersex. So there's probably so many more people that are intersex that we don't even know of. Some of you asked, how do you find out if you're intersex? And that's going to be a doctor question. You're going to have to get some testing. I assume that's some DNA testing, blood testing, maybe even an ultrasound. But if you're serious about finding out if you're intersex, definitely go for it. Don't be afraid to get a second opinion. Always advocate for yourself. I really appreciate this comment. They said they had a conversation with their partner about if they have an intersex child, what would they do? And I think a big problem with this surgery is a lot of people don't even know that it's happening. A lot of people don't know about intersex people and what they have to go through. So I think if we keep talking about it, if we keep advocating for it, new parents will feel more prepared when they're in that situation. Becoming a parent, there's so many different things that you have to worry about. And it's sad that this is another thing that you have to worry about. But like, as for me, I want to have kids in the future. I would rather know that this is something that happens literally every single day in hospitals across America and across the world. So yeah, thank you for this person for already starting the conversation in their community. And I hope some of you can talk about it with your partners too.